Okay, so 3 minutes have passed. I think we can get started with our training. So welcome everyone. Welcome to this DataSnipper training. Before we get started, I will briefly introduce myself. So my name is Vasiliki. I'm a chartered accountant. I used to be an auditor for 6 years. I work for PwC and KPMG, and now I'm an audit transformation manager at DataSnipper, based in Amsterdam. I'm mainly responsible for the successful deployment of DataSnipper at my clients, training auditors in the functionality of DataSnipper, communicating best practices, among others. Together with me, I have my colleague, Dirk.
Yeah, hi everyone, my name's Dirk. I am also an audit transformation manager here at DataSnipper, former auditor and CPA with Deloitte in the US. I'll be moderating this session today, so if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A or the chat, and I will address those as Vasiliki is going along with the training today.
Thank you for the interaction, Dirk. We're both very excited to be here today. So now I would like to ask you to scan the QR code you can see on my screen, or you can go to menti.com and then enter the code you can see on the slide. And by doing that, we'll be able to have a more interactive session together. So I'll give you a few seconds to log into menti.com. So if you enter menti.com, you can also see the code shown on the top of my screen. You'll see the question, how familiar are you with using DataSnipper? I'm curious to see your answers. I'll tailor the training accordingly. Let's see if we have any experts with us today. I see some mixed results. Most of you have used DataSnipper before. Some of you didn't have the chance to use DataSnipper. And I'm sure all of you will have something new to learn today. So now it's time for a short icebreaker. You can pin on the image, you can pin on the map in order to answer these questions. I'm curious to see where you're based. I see mainly we have participants from the US, some people from Europe, and from Africa. Surprisingly, a couple of participants are from Asia. Interesting results. Another question for you, which emoji best describes your current mood? So you can pin on the emoji best representing your mood, and hopefully you're all in a good state. Okay, I see that a few are not feeling very well. Hopefully you'll feel better soon. Okay, good to see that most of you are in a good mood, and hopefully your mood will improve even further during the training. And now let's have a look at the agenda for today's training. I will first talk about what DataSnipper is, and then I will demonstrate how DataSnipper works by showing its main features and functionalities using some audit-related examples. Feel free to ask any questions throughout the training, and I will also try to pause after explaining each feature and functionality in order to allow enough room and answer any of your questions. You can use the Q&A functionality of Zoom, and you can also use menti.com. I think there is already a question that was posted on Menti. Oh, I see that the link to the training materials, it's not visible in the chat. Just a second to look into this. I will try to share this again. And I hope now it will work. So I have shared the link to the training materials again in the chat. I will give you a few seconds to click on the link. Please let me know if the issue is resolved now. And then we can get started with our training. All right, so I hope now the issue with the link to the training materials is resolved. I will continue with the presentation. What is DataSnipper? DataSnipper is an intelligent audit platform within Excel that improves the speed and the quality of your audit. With DataSnipper, you can automate the repetitive, manual, and time-consuming tasks, and this can help you save a lot of time, and it can also help you enhance the audit quality. With DataSnipper, you can import your supporting documents directly to your Excel workbooks. Your supporting documents can be PDFs, images, Word files, Excel files, email files with attachments. All these different types of supporting documents are being supported by DataSnipper, and you can include them into your Excel workbook. And then you can quickly and efficiently extract the information you need from your supporting documents. You can match the Excel data that you want to test with the supporting documents automatically, and so much more that I will show you in a bit. So who is using DataSnipper? DataSnipper is already being used by more than 300,000 auditors across the globe, and this number keeps growing every day, which makes us very happy, as our mission is to make every auditor in the world more successful and impactful. How can you do a DataSnipper audit? This is what we'll be covering today. Firstly, I will show you the manual snipping, which are the basic and fundamental features of DataSnipper, and I will demonstrate manual snipping via a walkthrough example. And after covering manual snipping, we will move into two very powerful tools of DataSnipper, which are called document matching and form extraction. We will cover document matching via a test of details example, and then we'll cover form extraction via another test of details example in payroll testing. And lastly, we will cover table snip and final sums via some financial statement related procedures. So now, after all this talking, it's now time to start with the demonstration. I will quickly navigate to the first Excel workbook I'm going to use. I will start sharing my screen again. Hopefully the link is now accessible via the chat. Okay, I see that the problem is not resolved. Okay, I will look into this again. You should also be able to find the training materials in the meeting invite. I'm not sure why the chat is disabled. This is surprising. I will try to fix this now. So you see, this is the meeting invite. You can also download the training materials from the meeting invite you must have received. If you just click on this link right here. I'm sorry, I'm not sharing my screen. Okay.
Yeah, we can see your screen, Vasiliki. I see the link.
Oh, you can see my screen now. Sorry. Okay, it's confusing because the menu is on the other screen. So, okay, you can see my screen. So you can click on this link right here in the meeting invite, and you can download the training materials. I'm not sure why the chat is not working. At least the Q&A works. So if there are any other issues, please let us know. So we'll give you some time to download the training materials, and then we can start with the demonstration. All right, so hopefully now you have downloaded the training materials. It should take a few seconds. So if you have downloaded the training materials, you see that we have 4 folders. We have 4 different examples. So we'll start with the first example in the first folder. And this is the first Excel workbook I'm going to use. Sorry, I think there is something wrong with my Zoom today. Apologies for that. I will just start sharing my screen again. There, can you confirm that you can see my screen?
I just see your desktop at this point.
All right.
Yeah, now I can see the materials.
All right, so these are the training materials. The first example we're going to use is in the first folder. If you open this folder, this is the first Excel workbook we're going to use. And if you open this Excel workbook, you will see a simplistic testing template for a workflow procedure. And if you have DataSnipper installed on your computers, you should be able to see the DataSnipper tab in your Excel ribbon. If you click on the DataSnipper tab, you will notice that most of the options are grayed out. And this is because the first step we need to do in order to be able to start using DataSnipper is to import our supporting documents in the Excel workbook. You can click here on the Import Documents buttons, and you can then select the documents to import in your Excel. I'll go here in the Supporting Documents folder, and let's say I want to import these PDF documents. I just need to select them, and then click on Open. And then, as you can see, the supporting documents were included in my Excel workbook, and I can see them on the right-hand side via the document viewer. You can navigate to the different documents using the drop-down menu right here. And as you can see now, all the options are activated, and we can start using DataSnipper. Via the Import Documents buttons, you also have the option to import folders of documents, or import documents that are saved in your clipboard memory. So let me show you how this option works. If you navigate to specific documents and you want to import these documents, you can just select them and then right-click, select copy, or use the shortcut Control-C. And when you copy something, this is saved in your clipboard memory. So if you want to import this specific document in your Excel workbook, you just need to go back and select the option Import from Clipboard. And because this specific document is an image and it doesn't contain any text, DataSnipper asks whether I want to run text recognition over this image. I will say yes. And by doing that, DataSnipper will add a text layer over this image. So when you import scanned documents or images in the Excel workbook, DataSnipper asks whether you want to run text recognition over these images. And then if you answer yes to this question, you will be able to extract the information you need from these scanned documents or images. From this button right here, you also have the option to group your supporting documents, and I will show you later an example on where these may be relevant. So that was the first step. We have included our supporting documents in the Excel workbook. And now let's start documenting our audit procedure. If I didn't have DataSnipper installed on my computer, I would have to manually type the information I need from my supporting documents. But now that I have DataSnipper, I'm going to use the blue text snip in order to easily extract the information I need. So let's say I need the supplier name from the proposal document. What I need to do is to make sure the blue text snip is selected and then draw a rectangle over the supplier name. And as you can see, the supplier name has been extracted to my Excel without the need of manually typing this information. Let's say I also want the amount from this document. Again, I just need to draw a rectangle over the amount, and the amount has been extracted to my Excel workbook. So with the blue text snip, you can easily copy information from your supporting documents and save a lot of time because you don't have to manually type this information. Now let's continue with the yellow sum snip. This snipping option is very useful if you want to sum multiple numbers from your supporting documents. So let's say I want to sum these two numbers right here. What I need to do is to select the yellow sum snip and then draw a rectangle over the numbers that I want to sum. And as you can see, the total of these two numbers was extracted in my Excel. And you can also see from the formula bar what is included in this total. You can also use sum snip if you want to sum numbers that are not located right next to each other. They may be located in different parts of the page, or in different pages, or in different documents. So let me show you how you can use the yellow sum snip if this is the case. I will navigate here to the bank statement. So let's say you want to sum a few numbers from the beginning of the page and some numbers from the end of the page. What you need to do is to just make a sum snip over the first numbers. And then before making another sum snip, you need to press and hold the control button on your keyboard. I will press and hold the control button on my keyboard, and I will make another sum snip. And as you can see, the grand total of these numbers was extracted to my Excel. And you can also see from the formula bar that all these numbers were added together. You can include as many numbers as necessary in the same total just by press and hold the control button on your keyboard. So I will press the control button and I will make some more sum snips. I can also go to other documents, press and hold the control button on my keyboard and make more sum snips as necessary. And as you can see, all these numbers were added together. And if I click here on this cell, I can see where these numbers are coming from. I can see all the sum snips linked to this cell. So this is how you can use the yellow sum snip in case you want to sum multiple numbers from your supporting documents. So now let's continue with the validation snip and the exception snip. These snipping options are very useful if you want to highlight something in your supporting documents. So let's say, let's say you want to highlight that this proposal document is duly signed. In this case, you can use the validation snip and highlight here the signature area. So I will click on the validation snip and I will make a rectangle over the area that I want to highlight, and a green validation tick mark has been extracted in my Excel. If you don't use tick marks in your documentation, then you can just remove the content of this cell and include a comment that makes more sense to you. You can say here signed or authorized or yes to the question authorized. And as you can see, the link between the cell and the validation snip remains unaffected if you change the content of the cell. I want to mention here that it's the user that performs the validation. It's the user with their professional judgment that will validate whether this document is duly signed or not. It's not DataSnipper. You can use the validation snip in order to highlight something that you have validated using your professional judgment. You can also include multiple validation snips in the same cell. So let's say you want to highlight that this signature is in line with the signatory list. And as you can see, this guy is an authorized signatory. And I may want to also highlight this in my documentation. So in this case, I can press and hold the control button on my keyboard, following the same logic with the sum snip, and then make another validation snip. And if I click here on this cell, I can see that I have two validation snips linked to the same cell. One validation snip highlighting that the proposal document is duly signed, and another validation snip highlighting that this signature is in line with the signatory list and that this guy is an authorized signatory. Following the same logic, you can use the exception snip if you want to highlight something that looks wrong in your supporting documents, something that looks like an exception and it needs further investigation. So in this simple example that we have here, the proposal document doesn't have a document number, and we may want to communicate this to the client. So in this case, we can use the exception snip and highlight here this area in the supporting document. And then as you can see, a red X has been extracted to my Excel. You can change the content of the cell. You can include a comment that makes more sense to you. You can say here, no document number, to further investigate, to discuss with the client. You can include whatever comment you find more appropriate. And as you can see, the link between the cell and the exception snip remains unaffected if you change the content of the cell. So these are the basic and fundamental features of DataSnipper. This is we have covered the blue text snip, the yellow sum snip, validation snip, and exception snip. And before finishing with the first part of our training, I also want to mention a very useful functionality of DataSnipper. I want to mention the search and snip functionality. So if you want to search for a specific document or you want to search for specific information from the imported documents, you can use here the search field bar in the document viewer, and you can type the information you're searching for and then press enter, and you can see the documents that contain this information. You see that the 21% rate is being highlighted accordingly. And if I want to snip, if I want to extract this information to my Excel workbook, I just need to click on the snip button right here, and I can extract the 21% rate coming from the different documents. You can also use the information you have in your Excel workbook and search for this information. So let's say you want to search for the documents that contain this amount right here. What you need to do is to just select this cell, and then the content of the search bar will be filled with the content of the selected cell. And if I click on the search icon right here, I can see all the documents that contain this amount. And if I want to snip this amount from the 4 different documents, I want to extract this amount in these cells right here, I need to pre-select them. Otherwise, DataSnipper will extract this information on the next available cell on the right. That's why I need to pre-select here the cells. I'll go back to the search results. I'll go to the order confirmation document. I'll click on the snip button to snip the amount from the order confirmation. I will then continue with the invoice. I'll click on the snip button to snip the amount from the invoice. And then I will go to the bank statement. I can click on the snip button, or I can also do it manually if I want using the text snip. And as you can see, I have extracted the same amount coming from the 4 different documents using the search and snip functionality. So these are the basic and fundamental features of DataSnipper. And I will pause now to see if there are any unanswered questions. So
Yeah, Vasiliki, nothing in the Q&A at this point. Did just want to remind everyone, if you do have a question, please feel free to drop that in the question and answer window of Zoom, and we'll go ahead and answer those between these sections, but nothing as of yet, Vasiliki, in there.
All right, thank you, Dirk. So now let's continue with one of the most powerful tools of DataSnipper, and this tool is called document matching. And I will use another example to demonstrate this very powerful tool. If you have downloaded the training materials and you want to click along with me, you can go to the second folder. And this is the Excel workbook I'm going to use to demonstrate this very powerful tool. If you open this Excel workbook, you will see that we have a sample of items. This sample is coming from the general ledger, and let's assume that it relates to expenses testing. We have the invoice amount, the invoice date, and the invoice number. And we want to validate this information using the supporting documents shared by the client. So the client shared with us the relevant invoices and also the relevant bank statement to trace the payment of these invoices. So in this example, we're going to use document matching in order to automatically match the information coming from the general ledger with the information coming from the supporting documents. As you can see, most of the options are grayed out. And this means that we need to import our supporting documents in order to activate these options. So I will go here to the import documents button, and I will select the import folder option. I will then go and select the folder where the invoices are saved. And by selecting this folder and then click OK, the content of the folder, which are the invoices, will be imported in my Excel. As you can see via the document viewer, I have already the invoices imported in my Excel workbook. I can also navigate to the different documents using the drop-down menu. And I will now also include the bank statement. So I'll click here on import documents. And I will also import my bank statement in the Excel. So now that I have all the documents in my Excel workbook, I will go to document matching in order to provide the tool with some information. And I will let the tool to do all the work for me. So when you have different types of supporting documents that you want to use in your audit procedures, then you need to group these documents accordingly. You need to group them according to their nature. So in this example, we have the invoices and we also have the bank statement. So we need to create two groups in this case, one group for the invoices and one group for the bank statement. So I'll click on the add group option right here in order to create my first group. And I will name these invoices. I will select all the documents, excluding the bank statement. And I will click OK. I will also add my second group. And I will name this as bank statement. And I will select my bank statement. Of course, you could have more than one bank statement in a more realistic example. It's just for simplicity purposes that we have only one in this specific example. So I will click OK in order to create my second group of documents. And I will now select the documents that I want to be used by document matching. So that was the first step. The second step is to identify the relevant header row. And this is the row where the header of the testing table is located. This is row number 4 in this example. I will select here number 4. And by identifying the header row, document matching knows where the Excel data is located, and it also knows where the data coming from the supporting documents will be extracted to. So it's like the starting point for the tool, this header row. And the last step is to select the relevant input and output columns. The input columns are the columns that contain the information that we need to validate. These are the columns that contain the information coming from the general ledger. And in this example, these columns are columns A, B, and C, the input columns. The output columns are the empty columns where the information coming from the supporting documents will be extracted to. So these are columns E, F, and G for the invoices and I and J for the bank statement in this example. So now let's go and select the relevant input and output columns. I will start with the invoice amount. The input column is column A. The relevant output columns are columns E and I. E for the invoices and I for the bank statement. And now I need to add 2 more rows for the 2 more inputs that I have. So I will click here on the plus icon and I will continue with the invoice date. The input column for the invoice date is column B. The output column for the invoice date is column F. And I will not make a selection here under the bank statement output column because the invoice date is not a relevant input that you will find in the bank statement. A relevant input in this case would be the payment date. But in this simplistic example, the payment date is not available. The only relevant inputs are these 3 right here. And the relevant inputs for the bank statement are just the invoice amount and the invoice number, not the invoice date. That's why I will not make a selection right here. And I will continue with the invoice number, my last input. The relevant input column is column C. The corresponding output columns are columns G, G for the invoices, and J for the bank statement. So by providing document matching the relevant supporting documents and grouping them according to their nature, and then identifying the header row, the input columns, and the output columns, document matching will analyze the documents separately, and it will look for these specific inputs that we have provided. And then it will identify the relevant documents containing these inputs, and it will extract the relevant outputs right here. So I will click now on Match All Rows to run the tool. And in just a few seconds, document matching analyzes the invoices and the bank statements separately. And it has extracted here all the matches between the general ledger and the supporting documents. There is a message from document matching asking to use our professional judgment in order to validate the results. I'll click OK to this message, and I can easily validate the results just by selecting the individual cells. I can see the relevant linked documents. I can see where this information is coming from, and I can validate the results very easily. There are some cells that are empty, and here it means that document matching did not manage to find a match between the general ledger data and the supporting documents, and you need to further investigate these items. So let's have a look at this item right here. For example, the amount has been matched between the invoice and the general ledger, but the invoice date and the invoice number are different if you compare the invoice document and the general ledger data. So here, using your professional judgment, you may conclude that this looks like an exception. Maybe the client gave the wrong document. We need to request the correct invoice. You can highlight the date and the invoice number using the exception snip and communicate this further with the client. Let's have a look also at the bank statement. The amount was matched between the bank statement and the general ledger, but the invoice number was not matched. So again, we can use the exception snip and highlight this accordingly in order to investigate further. Let's have a look also at this item right here. For this specific item, the invoice date and the invoice number were matched between the general ledger data and the relevant invoice, but the invoice amount is different between the invoice document and the general ledger. It's different just by €1, and that's why it was not matched by document matching, because the amounts were not the same. Document matching was not able to match them. So in this case, you can use your professional judgment. You may conclude that this is an exception. You can highlight this using the exception snip. Or most probably you will say, okay, this is not an exception, it's just a rounding difference, and you can use the blue text snip to copy this amount. And if you have more than one cases where you have these rounding differences, then you can allow for some deviation to document matching. You can do that very easily by going back to document matching and click here on the 3 dots corresponding to the invoice amount, and then select the option Allow Difference up to 1. You can also change this number if you want to allow for more deviation. But if I want to just allow for some rounding deviation, I will just leave this to 1. I'll click OK, and I will run my tool again to show you how this works. I'll click on Match All Rows. Because the output columns are not empty, DataSnipper asks whether I want to overwrite this information. I will say yes. Document matching will analyze again all the information, and it will also take into consideration this deviation that we have allowed to the tool. And as you can see, it managed to extract the amount coming from this invoice, even though it's different if you compare the document, the supporting document, with the general ledger. Because we have allowed for some rounding deviation to the tool, document matching managed to find a match between the amount for this specific item. So that was document matching. It's a very powerful tool. You can use it in your expenses testing, revenue testing, bank confirmations testing. In general, when you have vouching involved in your audit procedures, you can use document matching and you can save a lot of hours or even days of work. So I'm pausing now to see if there are any questions.
Yeah, again, nothing in the Q&A yet, Vasiliki. But again, just a quick reminder that if you do have any questions, please do put those in the Q&A section of Zoom, and we'll address those as they come up.
I see that there are some questions actually. Dirk, I don't know if you have access to the Q&A. I see here there's some questions. Just a second to change the Okay, I see that you are a panelist, Dirk, and it's weird that you cannot see the Q&A. We can quickly go through now the questions. Okay, the first questions were about the chat being disabled. I hope now the issue with the training materials is resolved. As I mentioned earlier, you can just go to the meeting invite and you can find the link to the training materials there. Not sure whether the issue was resolved. I see some more comments regarding the training materials. So please let us know if the issue is now resolved, because the comments I think were from earlier. I see that also Dirk shared the link to the training materials in the chat. Okay, I see that there's a question for DataSnipper. Is the application also possible for clients backed up secured files? I think the answer is yes, as long as you have the password to these documents. So if these documents are locked, then you'll need the password. And if you have the password from the client, then you can include them in your Excel workbook, and then you can extract the information you need from these secured documents. Okay, I see a question regarding OCR. When I import the document and I get the question that asks if I want to add OCR to the imported document, what is an example of why I would ever select no to that question? This is a very good question. Maybe there is already some text layer over this document. Maybe you have used a very good scanner, and some very good state-of-the-art scanners can add a very good text layer over these documents, and you may don't wish to add another text layer over these documents. But that was a very good question. So that was an example on when you may not wish to run OCR.
Yeah, I think Vasiliki, also, if you're just importing an image to include as a reference in the file, you don't need to extract any data from it. You just want to have it available to link to either a green validation or red exception snip. At that point, then there is no need for text layer. So that's maybe a very specific example, but I do agree with Vasiliki. That's I think a case where most of the time you would want to click yes. So good question.
Thank you for your contribution, Dirk. Your answer makes more sense. Now let's have a look at some more questions here. The highlights in the PDF document that are seen is just limited to Excel view, right? Those highlights will not be seen on the PDFs if downloaded, exported. Is my understanding correct? You can, by highlights, I guess you mean the snips, and it's possible to export these snips. It's possible to export the documents, including snips and any comments that you may add on the documents, and I will show you later on how you can export the documents, including these highlights or snips and any comments you may have for the client. Okay, I see a question regarding the groups in document matching. Can you add a document to more than one group? As per my understanding, it's not possible to add one document to more than one groups. Can you please confirm, Dirk, if I am correct?
Yeah, I think you can't split the same document to two groups, but you could import it again into a different group if you create the groups, I believe, as you're importing them.
Right, thank you for your addition, Dirk. I see more questions here. There's a question regarding images. I would like to ask, does DataSnipper support documents in other formats aside PDF, like JPG or PNG? Yes, the answer to this question is yes. DataSnipper supports images, all the different types for image documents, and also scanned documents, very low quality scanned documents are also supported by DataSnipper. So if you have these kind of documents, you can still include them in DataSnipper and then run OCR in order to add a very good quality of text layer over these documents. Okay, I see that there are many questions here. I don't know if we managed to resolve the issue with the Q&A, Dirk.
I'm going to try and log back in and see if I can then view them, because I will then help you answer.
All right, in the meantime, I will continue with a few more questions and hopefully the issue will be resolved. I'm not sure what happened with Zoom today. I also gave other trainings earlier today and it worked fine, but I don't know with this specific one. I had a few issues, so apologies for that. I will continue going through your questions. Okay, here there's a question. Is there any way we can automate this data capturing from invoices? I will show you in a bit a tool, and hopefully this will answer your question. How can we delete bank statement folder under documents? Folder, I guess from folder, you mean the groups here, the document matching. If you want to delete a group, you can just click here on the pen, and then you can delete the groups and add them and add more groups if necessary. So if you click here on this pen, you can edit the groups accordingly. You can also delete them. So is the issue now resolved, Dirk?
I unfortunately still see no open questions.
I think if you log in with your own credentials, I may turn you into a panelist and then you'll be able to see the Q&A. In the meantime, I can go through the questions. It's not a problem. Good that we don't have hundreds of questions. We can go through them right now. Okay, here it says, does DataSnipper work on documents that have been printed and scanned, or it only works on original PDFs? I think this question is answered from what I said earlier. When you have scanned documents, even if they're very low quality documents, and even if they have handwritten text, readable handwritten text, then DataSnipper can still recognize the information in these documents. So try this out and you'll see that it works. Okay, there's a very good question. What if we have only a read-only access to the PDF, so no password is needed? I understand that DataSnipper can still capture this information, even if you have only read-only access to these documents. So please try this out and let us know in case there are any issues. You can always come back to us. But as per my understanding, even if you have only read-only access, and you will still be able to extract the information you need. Another document regarding scanned documents, does document matching also work on scanned PDF files? The answer here is yes. You can use all the snipping options and all the tools, even if your documents are scanned copies. Okay, here I see a question regarding document matching. I was following along with the training materials. A few items did populate after performing the document matching, mostly dates in column F. Probably half of mine are missing. Why would this occur? Oh, this is very interesting. I'm not sure why would this happen. I have performed this test again and again with many Excel workbooks and many trainees following along, but can you please reperform the document matching test and let me know whether this issue is still there, and we can maybe resolve this later. If you still have this issue, it's surprising to hear that. I see that Dirk is back. I will try to make you a panelist now, Dirk, to see if the problem
I can see the questions now, so okay. I will go ahead and start answering some of these in the
that's great.
Chat as well.
I think the last 3 or 4 questions are unanswered, but yeah, good that now you have access to the Q&A. So now I can continue with another very powerful tool of DataSnipper, and this tool is called form extraction. And I will use another example to demonstrate this tool. If you have downloaded the training materials, you can go to the 3rd folder. And this is the Excel workbook I'm going to use. So if you open this Excel workbook, you will see a simplistic testing template in payroll testing. We have already included the relevant supporting documents. We have here the payslips for this test. And as you can see, the payslips have the same layout. These documents have the same structure. They correspond to different fake individuals, but as you can see, the layout of these documents have the same, it's the same. So when your supporting documents have the same layout, you can use form extraction in order to extract the data fields you need across the documents that have the same layout. Let me show you how this works. I will click on form extraction, and then I will select the start new form extraction, and I will select here the PDF document where these payslips are being saved. I'll click OK. And with form extraction, you have 3 options. You have the document option, the page option, and the multiple lines per page option. And this means that you can use form extraction in order to extract information from different documents with the same layout, or from different pages with the same layout, or from multiple lines from pages with the same layout. And I will show each option with a different example to demonstrate form extraction as clearly as possible. So with the payslip example, we have only one PDF document. And this PDF document is consisted of multiple pages, and each page corresponds to a different payslip. So in this example, the relevant option is the extract per page option, because I want to extract information from different pages with the same layout. That's why I have selected this option. And now let's say I want all the employee names and all the IDs and all the gross pay amounts across all the pages with the same layout. So I will click here on add extraction, and just by placing snips over the data fields that I want to extract, form extraction has extracted all the names and all the IDs and all the gross pay amounts from all the pay slips, from all the pages with the same layout. These snips are very flexible. If you click here on the 3 dots, you can move them around. You can change the size of the snips. You can rename them. You can also delete them if you want. So it's very user-friendly, very easy to change the snips. And if you're happy with the results, you can click on the export to Excel, and this information will be available to your Excel workbook. As you can see, we have the relevant payslips attached to this information. And you can also copy the snips into different parts of your Excel workbook. I may want to transfer these snips to my testing tab, for example. So I will copy these snips and I will transfer them here. And as you can see, the payslips are still linked to the copied snips. You can also, of course, cut them, not only copy them, can easily move them around. And the relevant documents will still be there, linked to the snip information. So you can move around your snips. You can also copy them into other workbooks, into other Excel workbooks. So I will just open an empty workbook to show you how this works. I will copy here my snips into this new workbook. And as you can see, also the linked documents have been copied into my new Excel workbook. So it's very important to be aware of this option. You can easily move your snips around as needed. So going back to form extraction, as I mentioned, when your supporting documents have the same layout, you can use form extraction and extract the data fields you need across the documents. We have 3 options in form extraction. We have the document option, the page option, and the multiple lines option. And with the payslip example, we looked into the page option. So now let's have a look at the document option, and I have another example to demonstrate this. In your training materials, there is a folder called additional examples. And now I'll use this example right here with the US tax forms. So if you open this Excel workbook, you will see a number of documents inside. Get a document viewer. We have 12 different tax forms, 12 different documents. And as you can see, all these documents have the same structure. They have the same layout. There are different details inside corresponding to fake individuals. But as you can see, these documents have the same layout. So I will click now on form extraction. I will click on start new form extraction, and I will select all the documents I want to extract the information from. I will click OK. And now we'll leave the option extract per document because I have different documents in this example. Different documents with the same layout. So now let's say I want all the last names and all the social security numbers and all the taxable income amounts. What I need to do is to click on add extraction. And just place snips over the data fields that I want to extract. And just by placing 3 snips, I have extracted all the surnames and all the social security numbers and all the taxable incomes from all the documents with the same layout. If I'm happy with the results, I can click on the export to Excel, and this information will be available in my Excel workbook. So that was the document option. Now let's have a look at the line option of form extraction. I will use this example right here, the bank statement example. So if you open this Excel workbook, you will see a multi-page bank statement is already included in our Excel. And as you can see, the information is in different lines. So if I want to export, if I want to extract all the dates and all the descriptions and all the amounts from all these different lines from this similarly structured document, I can use form extraction. Select my document. And because I want to extract information from multiple lines, I will go here and I will select the extract multiple lines option. And then just by placing snips, I made it a bit small, so I will make another one. Just by placing 3 snips over the data fields that I need and make sure the snips to be big enough. For example, if you have a longer description on the first one, you need to make a snip that will capture this longer description. You can change the size of the snip very easily, as I said. Just click here on the 3 dots, click on edit, and you can easily adjust the size. I will add one more extraction for the amount. And as you can see on the right-hand side, we have all the dates and all the descriptions and all the amounts coming from this multi-page bank statement. So when your supporting documents have the same layout, like the bank statement example, the tax forms example, and the payslip example, other examples can be sales invoices or agreements sometimes. So when you have supporting documents that have the same structure, they have the same layout, and you want specific information across all the documents with the same layout, then you can use form extraction. And just by placing snips over the data fields that you need, form extraction will extract all the information automatically. So that was a very useful tool. I don't know if there are any unanswered questions. I know Dirk still have many questions from earlier to respond to. I will quickly check on Menti whether there are any questions posted there. Okay,
Yeah, I've been addressing anything in the Q&A as we go. There was one question just to highlight when you did copy and paste your snips to a different workbook. Just to clarify that the supporting documents then will follow that information that was linked. You can also just copy and use the paste special only values if you just want the information to transfer without those links.
Thank you very much for your addition, Derek. So now let's continue with the last features I want to show you today. If you go back to your training materials and then go to the last folder, here we have the last example we're going to use to demonstrate the last features. If you open this Excel workbook, you will notice that we have already a couple of documents inside. We have a trial balance report and an annual report. So let's go first to the trial balance report. So let's assume that the client shared with us the trial balance report in PDF format, and we need this information in Excel, and we want to extract these tables easily to our Excel workbook. In this case, we need to use the purple table snip. And if I click here on the purple table snip, you see that DataSnipper recognizes all the tables, and it has a blue rectangle around all the tables in the document. And if I want to extract all the tables to my Excel workbook, I need to click here on the snip all tables, and then all the tables from this document has been extracted to my Excel. I can easily change the columns. If necessary, I can remove the columns using here the minus icon. I can add columns using the plus icon. So I can easily change the structure of the columns if necessary. I can also change the structure of the rows of the table by click on the three dots and then select that it rows. And by using the plus and minus icons, you can easily remove or add rows accordingly. It's very user-friendly, it's very adjustable. And if you don't need all the tables from this document and you just need part of the table, then you can use the purple table snip and then just draw a rectangle over the part of the table that you want to extract. So let's say I only need this part of the table. I then need to adjust here the columns. I can do that very easily using the minus and plus icons. And as you can see on my Excel, I have extracted here the information from my table, and I have adjusted here very easily the columns and the rows if necessary. I click here on the plus icon, see that we can include any empty rows. You can remove them. So this is a very useful feature in case you have tabular data that you want to extract from your supporting documents to your Excel workbook.
So we did just have one question on switching between editing rows and columns. Could you just show how to do that one more time?
Oops, sorry. Sorry if I was said too fast. So I was saying earlier that you can click here on the three dots and you can easily switch from the edit columns to the edit rows option. Just click here on the three dots and then select the option that you need accordingly. And then just use the minus or the plus icons in order to add any rows or remove them. The same applies for the columns. Click here on the plus icons to add columns or to remove them. I hope that this answers your question sufficiently. And that was the purple table snip. So now let's continue with the last tool I want to show you, and this tool is called Find All Sums. This is a very useful tool if you want to check the mathematical accuracy within financial statements. What you need to do is to just select here the relevant document, this annual report in our example, and then click on Find All Sums. DataSnipper will analyze the whole document and will identify all the totals, both vertically and horizontally, and then it will extract here in the Excel all the correct totals. And it will also place snips over the mathematically accurate totals. So when you see a total like this one right here, that doesn't have any snips, it means that this total is not mathematically accurate. And you can easily validate that using the yellow sum snip right here. So if I draw here a rectangle over these three numbers, I can see that the total of these three numbers is indeed very different from the total in the annual report. So if you want to communicate this to the client, you can include a comment using the comment functionality right here. And here you can ask the client to fix the total. You can then continue going through the document, and where you see that there are totals that don't have any SNPs, it means that these totals are not mathematically accurate. You can include your comments and then share this document with the client. You can export this document, including the SNPs and your comments, using the export option right here. Then make sure to select the option export with SNPs and comments. Select where you want to save your document. I will save this on my desktop. And then this document will be exported with DataSnipper. And it will include all the SNPs and all the comments that I have included. So this is how you can communicate with clients, any comments that you may have on the supporting documents. As you can see, here is my comment and all the SNPs. And that was find all sums. It's very useful if you want to check all the totals in the financial statements very, very fast, and you can easily identify all the totals that need further investigation because these totals are not mathematically accurate. So now I will continue with the document management options right here. So as you can see, this option is by default enabled. In all the Excel workbooks, you will notice that this option is always enabled. And this means that if this option is enabled, the supporting documents you have in your Excel workbook are adding up to the size of the workbook, and they are part of this Excel workbook. So if you want to disable this option, you can just click on it, and then you'll be asked to exclude these documents from the Excel workbook. I will say OK. Now, as you can see, this option is disabled, but I can see view the documents via the document viewer, and I can still use the snipping options and the tools of DataSnipper, even if this option is disabled. And the reason that I can still view these documents is because I have access to where these documents are located. Because I had these invoices saved on my desktop, and then I have imported them in the Excel workbook, I have access to my desktop. I have access to where these documents are saved. That's why I can still view them, even if this option is disabled. But if I share this Excel workbook with someone and this option is disabled, then this person will not be able to view the documents if they don't have access to where the documents are saved. So just leave this option enabled if you want other people to be able to view the supporting documents via the document viewer, unless all of you have access to where the documents are saved. So I hope that this was clear. We have mentioned already the export option. You can export the supporting documents, including any comments for the client, and then share the documents with the client together with the Excel workbook, including the SNP information. You can also remove documents, always following the document retention policy of your company. You can choose a document that you want to remove. And from here, you can also see the number of SNPs being placed on the documents. So you may want to remove the documents that don't have any SNPs, like this one right here. You also have the option to remove pages without SNPs. You can remove pages without exception SNPs. You can also redact text in case you have confidential information in the supporting documents, like the payslip example. So if I click here on the redact text option, I can hide the employee names and the IDs. And then I need to right click and select apply all reductions. When you click on apply reductions, then it's not possible for someone to view what is under these black boxes. You also have the option to compress the size of the supporting documents. So if you have included too many documents in your Excel workbook and you have noticed that your Excel workbook is a bit slow, then you can choose this option right here, and then the quality of the documents will not be impacted, and you should still be able to place SNPs over the compressed documents. You can also prompt text recognition manually, and this is very useful, as I said earlier, on images and scanned documents. You can also change the settings of the document viewer. You have a second screen, for example, you can view the supporting documents via your second screen. You can also close the document viewer temporarily. And these were the document management options. Let's now have a look at the Learn button right here. In case you want to learn more about DataSnipper, you can click here and then go to our knowledge base, where we have many useful use cases and articles. You can type here and find answers to your questions. So it's highly recommended to check out our knowledge base. We have a lot of valuable information in there. If you click on Getting Started, you can see here the learning panel inside the Excel workbook. And here you can find different use cases. You can see how you can use DataSnipper in the different audit procedures. And if you click on one of these options, you'll be redirected to our knowledge base. We have short videos, we have different templates, examples, step-by-step instructions. Highly recommended to check this out. And if you want to learn more about specific features of DataSnipper, for example, for document matching, again, you will be redirected to our knowledge base. We also have frequently asked questions. There's a lot of knowledge in our knowledge base. And if you want to learn more, and you can also set up your own learning track. And if you sign yourself up, you'll be receiving emails periodically, including tips and tricks, different trainings available, what is coming up with future versions of DataSnipper. So this is also very highly recommended. And last but not least, if you want to see something different in DataSnipper, if you want to see a feature that is not yet available, you can click here on the Give Feedback option, and you'll be redirected to our feedback portal. Here you can see many feature requests coming from our users. You can vote accordingly. You can join the discussion. And of course, you can also make your own feature request. You can also click here on the roadmap, and you can see what is coming up with future versions of DataSnipper. So we have covered everything regarding the DataSnipper platform. I'm pausing now to see if there are any questions before we have a nice recap quiz.
Yeah, so Vasiliki, thank you very much for the very helpful training on the features. We did have a few questions come through about access to recordings of this session. And because this was a live webinar, you will get a link to the Zoom recording of this session once Zoom actually does process the recording itself. And there was also quite a few questions on basically what happens to the size of your work paper documents as you continue to import a lot of documents. So maybe just helpful to one more time highlight the options to like remove or reduce file size in some manner.
Yes, I will cover again these document management options regarding the removal of the documents. So in case you have observed that your Excel workbooks are a bit slow, then you can choose the documents that to remove. You can also see the number of snips being placed on the documents. So you may want to remove the documents that don't have any snips. You can also remove pages without snips. You can remove pages without exceptions, without exception snips. And we can also compress the size of the supporting documents. And this can lead up to 90% compression of the size of the documents. And this should not impact the quality of the documents. And you should still be able to place snips and use the DataSnipper tools over these compressed documents. And you also have the option to disable this option right here in order to exclude the documents from your Excel workbook. And as I said, even if you export these documents, even if you disable this option, you will still be able to view the documents if you have access to where the documents are saved. Oops, sorry, something happened to my Excel. So as I showed on the other example, right here, what example? Sorry, it was this example right here. As you can see, the option right here is disabled, but I can still view the documents because I have access to where these documents are located. If I don't have access to where the documents are located, then I will not be able to view the documents. At this example right here, I have disabled this option. As you can see, I cannot view the documents because their documents were included in the Excel workbook beforehand. I didn't import them myself. I didn't have them on my desktop. That's why I cannot view them, because I disabled this option. But for this example right here with the invoices, because I have them saved on my desktop, I can still view them, having this option disabled. So as long as you have access to where the documents are located, even if this option is disabled, you can still view them. So this may also be helpful, but I would recommend to choose to remove the documents that you don't need or to compress the size of the documents in case you want to minimize a bit the size of your Excel workbook. So I hope that this answered your question sufficiently. Now we can have a quick recap quiz and then answer any more questions that you may have. So if you are logged into menti.com already, no need to log in again. If you haven't logged in earlier, you can log in right now using the QR code you can see on my screen, or the code you can see on my slide, and enter menti.com. So I'll give you a few seconds to enter Menti and then have a short recap quiz. You can answer the questions anonymously. All right, so I hope that you have logged into Menti and we can start with our quiz. So first question, why are most features grayed out in the DataSnipper tab? As you can also see from the image. And this is the correct answer indeed. No documents were imported. That's why here all the options, most of the options are grayed out. The first step we need to do before start using DataSnipper is to include our supporting documents in the Excel. And then all these options will be activated. So well done, that was the correct answer. Let's now continue with the second question. What types of files can be imported in DataSnipper? And this is the correct answer. All of these options are supported by DataSnipper. As I mentioned also earlier, you may have PDF documents, scanned documents, screenshots, email files, Excel files, Word files. All these different types of files are supported by DataSnipper. And by going here to this import documents window, from this drop-down menu right here, you can check all these different types of files that are being supported by DataSnipper. So the correct answer here is all of the previous options, not only the PDF and image files. Next question, which manual snipping option will you use in order to avoid the manual typing of information? And the correct answer is TextSnip. You can use TextSnip and save a lot of time. Instead of manually typing the information, you can easily capture the information you need and extract it in no time in your Excel workbook. Another question, with validation snip, DataSnipper validates the snipped information. Is this statement true or false? This is a trick question. The correct answer here is false. It's not DataSnipper that performs the validation. It's the user using their professional judgment. And you just use DataSnipper in order to highlight what you have validated. So you use the validation snip in order to highlight something that you have validated yourselves. So the correct answer is false here. It was a bit of a trick question. Another question, in which case can search and snip be used? And this is the correct answer indeed. You can use the search and snip functionality in order to search for information on the imported documents. A question on document matching. In which cases can you use document matching? The correct answer here is all of the previous options. You can use document matching in your revenue testing, expenses testing, bank confirmations testing. In general, when you have vouching involved in your audit procedures, you can use document matching and you can save a lot of valuable time. So this is the correct answer to this question. In all these cases, you can use document matching. Another question on document matching. How does document matching indicate if there is an error or variance from the sample that needs further investigation? And the correct answer here is by leaving the relevant cell empty. As you can also see from the image, document matching will leave the relevant cell empty if it doesn't find a match between the Excel data and the relevant supporting documents. It will indeed ask you to use your professional judgment, but it will also leave the relevant cell empty if there is an error or variance from the sample that needs further investigation. And a question on form extraction. How can you extract data using form extraction? The correct answer is by placing a snip over the data fields you want to extract, and then DataSnipper will extract all the relevant data you need automatically. Sorry, you just need to first indicate the data fields that you need by placing snips over the data fields you want to extract. So that was the end of the quiz. I'm pausing now to see if there are any questions that are worth being mentioned, Dirk.
Absolutely. Nothing more in the Q&A at this point.
All right, then we can cover a few frequently asked questions before we end this training. Thank you for your love. Okay, if you snip the wrong information, then how do you delete that? Let me show you how you can delete a snip. I will show you via this example right here. Yeah, I just received an error. In just a second to close my Excel workbooks, because I think okay, something happened here with my computer. Apologies for that. I will just close here some windows and then I will reopen my Excel. All right, I will start sharing my screen again. If you have too many windows open, then this may happen. So I hope you can now see my screen. So the question was, how can you delete snipped information? How can you change a snip? If you want to delete snips, you can either select the snips that you want to delete and then click on this option, delete snips. You can remove all of them if you want. You can also go to the documents themselves and then right click and select delete snip. So this is how you can delete snips, either by using the delete snips option right here or by right click on the snips themselves and then select the option delete snip. Another frequently asked question, is it possible to change the name of a document directly in the document viewer? And the answer is that yes, it is possible. Just right click here on the document and select the option rename file. And this is how you can also rotate pages or delete files. You can also rename the files accordingly. Just right-click on the document viewer, and you can easily change the name of the file. Can I use DataSnipper if I do not have internet connection? DataSnipper is a local application, so you don't need internet connection for most of the options of DataSnipper. But if you want to go to our knowledge base or provide feedback, then you will need internet connection. And also, if you want to run text recognition, again, you will need internet support. But for all the other options, you don't need connection to the internet. You can use the snipping options and the tools without a problem. Another question here, how can we collaborate with people that do not have DataSnipper installed? Like, for example, the clients. I would recommend to share the Excel workbooks with them, including the relevant snips, and then export also the documents, including snips and any comments you may add on these documents. And then they will be able to view the information very easily. They will not be able to view the document viewer, but if you export here the documents with the snips and any comments that you have, then it should not be a big problem. So this is how you can collaborate with people that do not have DataSnipper installed. What happens to the snip data if you remove the relevant supporting documents? The snip data will remain unaffected. Let me show you this with an example. For example, here, the tax forms. If I choose to remove the tax forms, you can see that the snip information remains unaffected if you remove the supporting documents. I see that there are two questions that came in. Okay, you're welcome. Is it possible to transfer many tick marks from PDF to another? By tick marks, I guess you mean the snips. As per my understanding, it's not possible to transfer the snips from document to another. Again, that was from earlier. So now let's have a look at the last frequently asked questions. Okay, so we covered all the frequently asked questions. I also wanted to mention now that if you're not a DataSnipper client yet, you can reach out to our sales team by sending an email to this address that you can see on my screen. And then our sales team will take you from there. We can arrange a pilot. And please let us know in case you want any help, any support with that. I'm having a look at the Q&A. I see that there are some questions from earlier that may be left unanswered, but I will have a look at them and we'll come back to you accordingly.
Yeah, there was also a quick question, Vasiliki, about upcoming new functionalities or other introductions by DataSnipper. Just to highlight that version 4.1 was just released this month in September. We do plan to release a new version about every 6 months or so. As you can see here in the roadmap, we do have version 5 already tagged for the end of Q1 2023. And this roadmap is going to show you some of those expected features and functionalities you might be able to expect. So this page here at the feedback.datasnipper.com portal, again, the roadmap will show you what these might be.
Thank you very much for your addition, Dirk. I think that marks the end of the training. Now I would like to ask you for your valuable feedback. You can either scan the QR code or you can click on the link you can find on your phones in case you are logged into menti.com. I will also try to share the link in the chat. I hope you'll be able to find it. So we're constantly trying to improve and tailor our trainings based on your needs. Really appreciate your feedback. I have just shared the link in the chat as well. It should take more than 1 minute from your time. So thank you very much for joining today's training. We'll share with you the recording later. And also I will go through the questions to make sure that everything was answered sufficiently because we had this small issue with the Q&A in the beginning of the training. So thank you again for your participation as well and enjoy the rest of your day.